Oh no, I just realized I've been talking for the last 2 minutes and I was muted. All right, let's start off again from the beginning. Welcome, welcome. As you can see, it is just me today. Aaron is, I'm assuming, still on his trip in Michigan. He went to where was it? Grand Rapids? Yeah, Michigan last week. So I'm assuming he's not back yet. So it's just gonna be me. I really wanted to just hop on for a bit. It probably won't take up the whole hour today. But I wanted to go over what I was originally gonna talk about 2 weeks ago or last week. Sorry. Last week, because he went on his trip, I didn't do a live stream. So the original plan was to talk about business acquisition and using AI as a resource to help you make a decision to get more information and do research. That's like the biggest first step. So, just for the foundation, the business that I'm going to go over is. Let me step back one more step. I originally wanted to upload the business packet that I received from the broker. Everything that I look at pretty much is from a brokerage. I like that because they have everything already just organized and like neatly packed together in a package so that it's a lot cleaner and easier and more comprehensive than going to a seller directly and like trying to manually withdraw all the information. It just takes up a lot more time. So the brokerage saves my time. So I originally wanted to just redact some of the information and then screen share that. However, Claude was very adamant about this confidentiality agreement notice that's on the beginning of the packet, and they highly recommended that I did not do that. Even with the redacting, it would breach the confidentiality agreement. Therefore, we're not doing that. Sorry. Instead, I had Claude recreate based off of the original documents that I gave it. It recreated a realistic looking business opportunity. And I'm going to use that as an example because the important part really is just knowing like what questions to ask based off of the general business that we're looking at. And so in this case, it is a water restoration company. So am I going to buy a water restoration company? I don't know. Let's take a look. Let's see. So let me start off by sharing my screen, and I'm gonna pretty much show you Claude today. Give me just one moment. Let's see. I always get a little bit anxious when I'm sharing my screen because my computer is absolute chaos and I just have all these, like, I'm a hoarder of tabs and screens and I just don't want to X out of anything. And so, like, YouTube videos, for instance, I have like all these YouTube videos that I'm watching simultaneously up on my top bar. So it's just like kind of embarrassing. So I don't want to have to show all that. So I'm trying to just show my Claude. um, I think that is it. That should be right. All right, so this is a blank Claude page. I hid my sidebar because you don't want to see that. So here's what we got. We have a water restoration company. Or rather, water mitigation and insurance restoration. And so what's really appealing about this business is not just that it's water restoration, like in Florida. Let me just specify that. So this business is in Florida, where there are more hurricanes than maybe in the West Coast. So the need for water restoration is higher over here. Let's just start with that. What I really like about this business, though, is not that it is a necessary business. Like when there's a hurricane, like everyone's going to need a water restoration service. The competition for this is quite high. There's a lot of water restoration companies here in this area. So what makes this more unique? It's their relationships with insurance companies and the fact that they really rely heavily on making their relationships with insurance companies very strong, so that they rely a lot of their business on that. And the insurance, what's good about that, if you're not familiar, is it pretty much solidifies a lot more business, even though you have to go through the steps of like waiting for the payout from the insurance companies and communicating with it is a drag. When you have the right systems in place and you have the right relationships in place, it's a real booster to business. So I really like that. And not all water restoration companies have this. So that's a plus. And excuse me, I'm like snacking as we talk because I didn't eat lunch yet and I'm very hungry. Okay, so that's that. Actually, I have this mock summary here, and I think I can actually just share that. That makes more sense. Give me a moment. Here we go. Okay, so back to this. So we have the financials. It's a very broad outline of the deal summary. But you can see the revenue, 1.850. And it goes up every year. Let's see. The SDE consistently goes up every year. That's the seller discretionary earnings. In 2025, there's a big jump. So it's interesting, like what caused that jump? What do they do to bring revenue or their earnings up so much in that year? So that's something worth looking into. Their purchase price is $3,400,000. So it's a multiple of 3.24. It is SBA eligible, and that's good because I am probably going to be using SBA financing for this. And this alternative structuring, I don't typically actually see this in deal summaries from the broker, so that's not really realistic to look at. I think that's just something Claude threw together for me. So let's ignore that. The investment highlights. Currently receives more qualified insurance referrals than it has capacity to service. That's a good sign then, right? So it has more leads than it can than we have the people to fulfill, which means the next step to scaling is to increase our service capacity, which is easier than getting leads, in my opinion. Owner is not the primary labor, supported by project managers, estimators, and subcontractor network. Okay, so that means the owner is not like the one going out there and doing the work, which is important to me because I want to own a water restoration company. I don't want to go out and do the actual water restoration. I don't mind. Let me just lay down. I don't mind going out and doing it, but I'm trying to build a business of scale and hiring people, and that means having, the right people in place to go do that work, so that I can focus on like the actual expansion of the business. Low customer acquisition cost, that's good. All right, so anyways, here is basically the summary of everything. And what we're gonna do is take this and then what other documents did they give me? Or I guess this doesn't really look like a tax return because obviously it's a fake one from Claude, but this is also what they provided me. So imagine this is a tax return. And then what I'm going to do is go to Claude now, and I'm going to upload these documents. And I'm going to talk to it. Hey Claude, I am looking at this business based off of the information in these PDFs, and I need help assessing whether or not this is a good business for me to buy. Based off of this information, what should I look further into? What red flags do you potentially see? What questions should I be asking? think that's adequate. What I like about talking to the AI is that I just kind of like think things and it doesn't have to like make perfect sense and it is able to understand everything. So actually, you know what? They gave me an MD version and I think that'll be easier in terms of just saving my tokens. Give me a moment. There we go. It's basically what I showed you just now, except it's an MD file, which is easier for the AI to read than a PDF. A PDF is like an image, and so in terms of token usage, the AI has to like look at the image and then assess it, and just more steps, which means more token usage, which is kind of wasteful. Versus the MD files are very simple, direct text that is basically how the AI communicates, and so it's just easier for it to read. Okay, so this is what it has to say, the initial questioning. The numbers don't reconcile, and that's the first problem. Before you can get to whether it's a good business, ooh, that's a problem, right? So in these mock numbers, the numbers aren't reconciling, which means they don't match what they're stating as their revenue doesn't match their tax returns. Huge red flag. That's one of the, so see, that's something that, I mean, if you were to just look with your human eyes and check the numbers, that would pop out as well. But say you didn't know how to do that. Like, say I'm completely new at looking at numbers. I have no idea what a tax return looks like, and I have no idea like what questions to ask or any. I'm just completely brand new looking at this type of thing. This would be very helpful. In fact, if I didn't even understand what it meant, what reconciling means, I can ask the AI, what does it mean to reconcile something? So, but there's a lot more here, and I don't want to get sidetracked. So, the accountant's work paper. My neighbor decided to do some yard work right now, so it's quite loud outside. All right, so the accountant's work paper mentions an accrual adjustment that bridges cash basis to the higher broker number, but it's not filed 1120S. That's vague, growing unverified adjustment being used to justify an increasing premium over what the IRS actually saw. So it's really scrutinizing over the information, and honestly, I don't understand fully what it's saying, so I'm probably going to ask it to clarify what it means. Let me just say right off the bat, I am not a numbers person, and so reading all this stuff with numbers and financials, it makes my head hurt. And so, like, when I'm not on a stream like this, what I usually do is ask Claude or the AI I'm using to simplify in a way that's a child could understand, because that's what I need to read in order to actually understand what it's talking about. I'm a very simple mind. That's just so the bottom line. The offering memo is telling you a materially different story than the tax return is. That alone doesn't kill the deal, but it means the price and terms presented aren't trustworthy until reconciled. Which means just like balanced. And you should renegotiate off the tax return supported numbers, not the brokers. It's a sensitive topic since it's so financial legal. Okay. Okay, so the bottom line. So that doesn't really tell me though much else about the business. That's just telling me that the numbers, I mean, this is a very important note, right? Like when the numbers don't match up, that is a problem. But I want to know more like what in terms of the water restoration company, what else about it is good, what's bad. So let me ask it. Okay, thanks for that information. I'll definitely take a look at the tax return numbers and reconcile during my due diligence. However, I do want to get a deeper opinion of what are the top 3 questions I should be asking the broker or the seller. And what are 3 reasons why I shouldn't buy this business besides the numbers not matching up? And what are 3 things I should take into account when talking to the broker for this? That last question, honestly, I didn't really like it. I probably didn't need to ask that, but I just wanted to complete my sentence. Okay, so the top 3 questions for the broker. Why is the officer compensation $0 and wages only $38.50 for a business claiming $1 million in owner benefits? I just got the text, by the way, from Aaron. He's still traveling. Gets back home on Sunday, so don't expect to see him today. Just me. So, can I see the actual accrual adjustment work paper the accountant used to bridge cash basis revenue to the broker's number methodology, and not just a summary note? Who are the top 3 to 5 insurance carriers? Well, that's important, right? Like if they say they base their business strongly on insurance relationships, who are the actual insurance providers or carriers that they're partnered with? Important. I like that. Would I have known to ask that? Maybe eventually, but just right off the bat, knowing that's a good thing. And you just want to make a list of everything so that you can just like run through everything and it just makes everything more efficient. 3 non-number reasons to walk away. So, okay, so this is, I think the really important part about using AI is to have it play devil's advocate. And so here's 3 non-number reasons to walk away. Referral concentration risk. The whole model is we get more referrals than we can handle. That's customer concentration problem wearing a growth story costume. If it's 2 to 3 carriers driving most volume, one contract change or preferred vendor reshuffle guts the business. True. So we lose So it's just the concentration of customers. If it's very concentrated, we don't like that. Okay, owner dependency on relationships, not just labor. Okay, so it's relationship dependent on the owner. So after we change hands, it's possible that the relationships die with the changing of ownership, and that can just tank the business. So, what do we need to do to make sure these relationships stay afloat? And that's something we just need to ask them when we have our one on one conversation. So, that's something to know. That's actually very important. And then, is there a potential for a partnership? Maybe keeping the owner on a certain percentage so that they feel inclined to maintain the relationship and to keep the business going strong because they are also a small owner in the whole business. So that's something to think about. Regulatory licensing insurance program dependency. So, restoration work tied to insurance claims lives inside carrier preferred vendor program. Honestly, I don't really understand what that means. Like, independent, with understanding whether the carrier relationships are with the company or specifically vetted around the current owner and license holder. Okay. I that's something that I would normally just ask the AI to clarify for me. And actually one of the steps is to create a comprehensive list of questions to ask when talking to the because when you after you request the information initially, you schedule a meeting with them, and usually it's like a Zoom, and them as in the broker and or the seller, depending on your the situation, and you just want to have the whole list of questions. It's like an interview basically, right? Like a job interview. They ask you, do you have any questions for me? And they ask you your questions, and you just understand everything, and it's really nice to just have everything point blank. Yes. So you want to have a list, and I'm going to actually have Claude put together a list for me when I finish looking at this. And obviously, we're not going to have a seller broker conversation today, right now. But if you had one of these, that's how I would do it. So, three things to keep in mind when talking to the broker. The broker is paid on the sale closing, not on you getting an accurate picture. Treat every broker supplied number as a claim to verify, not the fact. Ask for sources, documents, not. Okay. All right, so that's. We don't need to talk about those. Cool. So let's ask it. Can you help me compile a comprehensive list of questions I should be asking the broker during our scheduled meeting to talk about the business opportunity? This is my chance to ask them any questions and to better understand this opportunity and ultimately why I should or should not move forward. Any just questions that you're not sure about, this is the time to list it all out for me. Okay. So here is my comprehensive list. Oh, wow. Comprehensive indeed. Let's see. I'm not going to read all of these out loud, but if you look at like the different sections, this is all the questions that it has about the financials. And then revenue concentration and referral relationships. And then this is about the operations. So like the day-to-day, that stuff is actually really important. Well, everything's important. And then licensing, legal, insurance, deal structure and motivation. Why do they want to sell? Yeah. Market and competitive. Market and competitive. Who are the main competitors in the Gulf Coast market? Yeah. So the storm seasonality question is worth sitting with. 2025 being a big hurricane year. Indeed it was. And the Gulf explains a real revenue spike that has nothing to do with durable growth. And the brokers, more referrals than capacity pitch would look very different if it's storm driven demand versus rather than a structural trend. That's true. You can't predict these hurricanes, right? So when there's a hurricane, you're going to get a lot more business. When there isn't, then you don't. And so I think at the end of the day, it's just something to think about, right? So you can't rely on having a hurricane on a consistent basis. That just doesn't make sense. Although we do have one coming up very soon. Apparently, one's brewing down in the Tampa region. I live in Orlando, by the way. So we actually haven't had that many hurricanes over here. I mean, we've had like storms, but no like crazy hurricanes. Knock on wood. This desk is wood. That I'm. Oh, sorry. I just made my dog unhappy by knocking. So let's see. So this is the list basically that I would go through when looking at the different questions I need to ask the broker. And yeah, I would just read through this, and I might cut some of these questions out. It's kind of long. I think if I were the broker, I'd be a little bit like annoyed if someone was going through each and every question like that. But like the really important ones, like the main topics, are really worth asking. So yeah, that. That is how I use the AI to look at businesses. Obviously, I'm not showing you a real business right now, but um, I'm getting better at, by the way, stopping the screen share and not stopping my live stream by accident. I remember I used to always do that by accident, and then I'd have to like restart it, and we'd have two separate streams. So not today, not today. We successfully did multiple screen shares with no problemo. Anyways, I said I would be a little bit shorter today, and I did. We're 38 minutes in. We talked about business, just looking at businesses using AI. Claude helped me out. Um, like I said, if I wasn't live streaming and I wanted to really dive even deeper, I would start asking um, additional questions. And at the end of the day, the biggest part of it is having Claude point out questions of things that I didn't know to ask and to play devil's advocate, because oftentimes our minds are so locked in on like why this is a good deal and why we want a deal that we don't stop to like look at all the other factors, and we have so many blind spots. So AI helps us identify these blind spots. Yeah. All right. So happy Friday. That's it for me. I'll see you next week. Aaron's going to be back. If you're watching right now, hi. This is my first time streaming live by myself. I'm still breaking through that discomfort. It's very uncomfortable. So hopefully you don't mind just seeing me by myself. Anyways, I'll see you next week. Uh, have a great rest of your day and have a great weekend. Bye.